You can hit it if you want. All right, thank you all for being here, and sorry we're getting started a minute or two late. We're doing the beer board first, so I'd like to call to order this beer board for Monday, November 5th, 2018. Please note that everyone is here and accounted for. Do we have any old business, Mrs. Owens?
No, sir.
All right, on to new business. Item A, application for off-premise beer license for the Bean and Barley located at 11994 US Highway 70, Suite 101 in Arlington. Mr. Lawson.
This is an application again for 11994 Highway 70, Bean and Barley for off-premise beer location license. Application's been made, the background checks have been conducted, and no problems came up. We recommend approval, staff recommends approval. The applicant is here.
Okay. You've heard the recommendation by Mr. Lawson. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Harmon. Discussion or question? Well, we do have a public hearing, but does anybody need to hear more about this first before we? Good? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the public hearing. It's just sometimes weird having a public hearing to make sure that everybody was clear on it. So do I have a motion to suspend the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting and open the public hearing? Motion by Mr. McKee. Second by Mrs. Pardue. This is a public hearing for our application for off-premise beer license for the Bean and Barley located at 1194 US Highway 70, Suite 101 in Arlington. This was published in the Daily News on October 9th. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please stand and be recognized. State your name and address for the record. Is anyone here to speak on this? Even the applicant, if you want to. It's up to you. You don't have to. I'm just saying it's up to you. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing and resume the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting? Motion by Mr. McKee. Second, we are back on the main motion. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I got a question. I was kind of hoping this would be on premises. Is there any intention to one day have it on premises, or?
So that question is for Gerald and I. So we are rewriting our beer policy right now, our beer ordinance, and it wasn't ready for the time being with the applicant wanting to go forward. But this time he's going to operate like a convenience store where you take the beer off-site, and then at which time, which we have our beer ordinance rewritten, he's going to make sure that they comply with the way it's written. Hopefully to have a first reading in December, but can't promise that. So.
And you gonna brew some of your own and sell other locals?
No, I'm not going to go.
All right.
Any other questions or discussion for staff? Mr. McKee.
Does the applicant have our policy? Or will they have? And just for you know, there's stings going left and right now.
Don't worry, I won't be one of those guys stinging or nothing.
Well, you don't look that way. You and I are not going to get checked.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Any other new business?
No, sir, but we do need to approve the
Approve the minutes.
Oh, I did skip over that, didn't I? I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the August 6, 2018 meeting?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Pardue. Give it to her. Any discussion or questions on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Any other new business, Mrs. Owens? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the beer board meeting?
Motion.
Motion and a second. Any objection? Beer board is adjourned. All right, give us a second to get over to the. Does everybody need any help on their iPads?
No.
There we go. Well, I do. So just hang on. I was trying to push it off. I was trying to push it off on y'all. So hang on. Hang on. I'm trying to get to my paperwork here. All right, we are now calling to order the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for Monday, November 5th, 2018. Please note that everyone is here. We do want to note that Mrs. Durant had a family emergency and was not able to be here tonight, just right before the meeting. So we'll keep our thoughts with her and her family. So if everyone will please stand for the opening prayer by Mr. Biggs, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day, and thank you for all your many blessings. We thank you for allowing us to gather here tonight and come together as a town. We ask that you give this board patience tonight to listen to each other and consider what each of us has to say, and give us the wisdom to make good decisions for the town. We ask that you be with our emergency response personnel tonight, as the weather is maybe not cooperative. And we also ask that you guide our town employees, our teachers, and our students. And then especially we'd like to ask for special prayers for Ms. Durant tonight and her family, and that you bring them through the situation they're going through. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Mrs. Moultrie, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 1st, 2018 meeting?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. McKee. Second by Mr. Brooks. Discussion or questions? Any objection to passing those minutes? Seeing none, that item passes. Next up is grievance and comments from citizens. This is where we allow anyone to come forward and speak on any particular topic, even if it's not on the agenda tonight. We will give you up to 3 minutes. We do ask you to state your name and address for the record. We will do our best to answer during the meeting, but it may not be able to answer your questions as they're asked. So is anyone here to speak on any particular topic? Seeing none, rolling on. Sheriff's Department report, Lieutenant. How are you?
Lieutenant Kathy Crowder with the Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Kathy Crowder with the Sheriff's Office to give the claims report for the month of October of 2018. The Sheriff's Office and Detective Division has leads on possible suspect information involved in the motor vehicle thefts in Arlington. We also did additional background investigation, lifted prints on the vehicles in total. After reviewing the reports, we had 5 deaths from motor vehicles. Out of the 5 reports, 3 of the vehicles was left unlocked. And we had 1 handgun that was stolen out of one of the vehicles. Last month, in the month of September, we had a total of 8 motor vehicle thefts, so we did have a decrease in the month of October. We had 5 that was reported. I wanted to give this information here again to Arlington to post on the citizens website, because we know the holidays is coming up. We have our new sheriff information on there just as well, to let everybody know to park smart and to lock your property just as well. We had 1 burglary from a business on last month. Our detectives is currently working with the business owner, the Arlington Market. It happened on Sunday, October 21st. The suspects pried the door open. Our detectives working along with the business owner, trying to get those suspects in custody. We had 1 burglary of a residence that was reported on last month, and the homeowner stated that a relative left the garage door open. There was a lawnmower that was stolen. We had pretty good on the 28 reports. Our deputies have increased patrols in the area of Arlington. And also our traffic units has had traffic radar in the school zones. You may have seen them out. So we've been making a high presence, trying to deter crime in our Arlington community. And we need citizens to continue to help us bring those numbers down. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Any questions on the Sheriff's Department report? Thank you very much for being here, and pray for everybody's safety tonight if there's any big storms.
Yes, I thank you.
Chief Harville.
Pulling double duty, but
Mm-hmm.
cameraman, hold on here.
Good evening. This is the monthly activity report from Arlington Fire Department for the month of October. We had 82 responses, 34 of those were fire responses. We gave mutual aid 8 times, we received it 9 times. We had 13 calls south of Interstate I-40, 7 calls on I-40. We were on 1 other call when Shelby County responded inside the town of Arlington in our absence, and we had 1 call where we were on limited manpower due to full arrest. We had 15 total inspections, 1 smoke alarm check, and 13 smoke alarms distributed. For updates for the fire department, 2 of our members came back after being deployed with Tennessee Task Force 1. after a little over a week's work of search and rescue down there in Mexico Beach. We had multiple, as you know, October's busy for the fire department, so we had several PR events throughout the whole month. We had one employee complete the trainer course for a clean fuel safety vehicle, and that's like electric cars, hydrogen cars, that type of thing. So he'll be able to bring that technology back to us. And then we had one member complete his master's degree in emergency management. An update on the sirens, you know, through our weekly report, we had several sirens that have been down for the last several weeks. We noticed there was a storm cell coming in this afternoon, so we posted on the town's website that we had 3 sirens down. We were able to work with ComServe, a local vendor, come in and get 2 of those sirens up and running. So the only siren we have down in town right now is at Town Hall. That's still under warranty. We worked with Public Works today for a little over 3 hours to try to troubleshoot and find out what's going on. They believe it's the logic board, and they're overnighting that, so we should receive it by close of business tomorrow at the latest Wednesday morning. And then we'll install that, and we're hoping that is the fix for this siren. That completes my report.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Harville?
One question, well, it's not a question. A couple of weeks ago, we were on a bus trip to Pigeon Forge, and the bus driver is one of the bus drivers that goes to, when the task force goes out.
Okay.
And she told us some of the things they did, and it was amazing. You know, sometime if you get about 5 minutes, maybe put a summary together. I didn't know they built the whole city when they went.
They're self-supportive for 72 hours.
I was amazed what she told us. So I think the board would be interesting to know what they do. I didn't know.
It's sometimes they're sent on trips where they're never productive because they're just on staging, but the ones they actually do, they go and they work and they work and they work. So,
And that, just to give you guys thanks for allowing us as Arlington Fire Department to continue to be a participating agency with Tennessee Task Force and allow our members to train them to be benefits.
Thanks. I'd just be, if you sometime have that time, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
No worries at all.
Chief, I hate to do this and make you maybe repeat something, but I think we have a news camera here, and I think that all of a sudden, I think their question is probably, I'm guessing it's about the tornado sirens. So if we could give them so that way we can redo that, and maybe they don't have to sit here for a meeting to try to ask questions that we've already answered or whatever. So I hate to do that to you again. Y'all give me a thumbs up. We'll just.
Everybody smile.
No, I'm hiding behind the camera.
Outdoor warning sirens. As you know, the past several weeks on the weekly report, we've had several sirens that were down. We were noticing bad weather coming in this week, and so we put the 3 sirens that were inoperable on our town website just to let the people know to rely on their smart devices for our early outdoor warning. We coordinated with ComServe, who came in and put a rush on 2 of the repairs. We were waiting on parts. And so out of the 3, 2 have been fixed, so the only siren that we have down right now is the one here at Town Hall. We worked with Public Works for about 2.5, 3 hours, and they determined it's probably the logic board. That siren is under warranty. We requested the part. They're going to overnight it to us, so we should have the part here late tomorrow, early Wednesday, and we're going to install it. Hopefully that'll fix that only siren that's down.
So thank you for that explanation. And I'm guessing, so 5 of the 6 are working. So technically, even the one that's not here everyone should be able to hear the sirens also, even though they're, so. Any questions for Chief Harville, excuse me. Sorry. I did that for a while. I'm sorry. Chief Harville, oh man. Any questions? Thank you, Chief, for that explanation. And I apologize for that slip there, that Freudian slip.
That's a compliment, really.
Okay. All right, on to committee report. Feel free to get your microphone if y'all, I don't know if you want to stay and observe. There's not a lot of excitement tonight, but you're more than welcome to, or you can get out of here before the storms hit if you want. So it's probably more exciting news somewhere. On to committee appointments. All right, so we are, it seems like we were at the 11th hour on committee appointments today because we had some juggling or some last minute news, but for the most part, this is the time of year we always do committee appointments. And last year was the first year that the board appointed the planning commission a member from the board. So we're not doing the vice mayor this year. We do that every 2 years at the election. The first order of business is to appoint the planning commission member by the board, and then I'll let you all know where some of the committees are falling on those who are reappointed. Just keep everybody in the loop. So, do we have any nominations for planning commission?
I'd like to nominate Jeff McKee.
We have a nomination for Jeff McKee. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, well, I still think we need to vote on. There's one, you win by vote, but I guess we need to vote on. So all in favor of, nominations are closed. So all in favor of Jeff McKee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jeff McKee is now on the planning commission. So.
Good luck.
Yeah, yeah, not trying to put anybody on the spot, just trying to make it
It's gonna be a
official.
rough year.
All right, so.
Somebody said no.
Yeah. Well, since we're on planning commission, we do have 2 vacancies on the planning commission. Tommy White had to come off a couple months ago because of work conflicts, and we've had a vacancy there that we've just kind of left, and so we were waiting until tonight. And then I'm looking at my notes. Mr. Bascom has served for quite a few years, and I notified him that his term, when it expired, I would be replacing him. So we have 2 new people. One we actually met last year, Miss Nicole Alston. She was here last year. She has a PhD in planning, and she actually works for the sheriff's department in planning. She actually helped get the Finch situation squared away. So she came recommended by several people, and Ms. Reeder has vetted her as she does, as our staff always does with these committee members. And so she's going to be hopefully a nice replacement there on the Planning Commission. And the other one is Mr. Dwight Barker. I don't know if you all know Dwight. Remember him? He did our, he works for a division of HSOG, I guess, but he did our community videos for Channel 5 several years ago. And he actually has some background in this area also. So he had requested a while back to do that also. So so he will be filling Tommy White's spot. So those are the 2 replacements on the Planning Commission. Yes, very sharp guy. So looking forward to seeing what a couple new people bring to the Planning Commission. I have a reappointment. That's right. I have a reappointment of Mr. Russ Campbell. I always try to ask people as we go through these committees if they are willing to reserve. I know there may be sometimes you can keep them there too long or not there long enough, but the fact of the matter is that sometimes, on Planning Commission especially, it's good to have some experience there. And I know some of y'all, so that takes care of Planning Commission. And some of y'all saw, so we get down to design review. And we had, let me pull my sticky notes off here. So design review is our one that has more criteria that you supposedly have. And we've kind of missed a spot or 2 with, you're supposed to have builder, landscaper, engineer, architect, those types of qualified businesses, or in that industry. And so Ms. Wall's term expired, and so we had a very qualified lady that was in the waiting as of last year also. We started, in case you all don't know also, we started taking applications over the last year or so. Angela keeps those on file. Sometimes I don't know these people. When they call or ask or email me, I say, fill out an application, go through Angela. And usually Angela or Brittany or staff kind of come with the recommendations, even though I'm appointed. They're the ones who kind of come saying, and they've talked to these people. But there's a Jeannie Myers. She's a professor of U of M architecture. So y'all remember the library project that we did? Yeah. She was the one that kind of headed up that program. So she definitely has the background for it. So that's great to know. And then we had a last minute curveball thrown at us this afternoon. We had an engineer that I confirmed last week to be on it, and then today at the last minute we found out that conflicts aren't going to allow him to be on it. So we have reached out to someone else, but we don't have that confirmation yet. So until Angela does that, then either she or I or somebody will let the board know at that time. But it's somebody else in the engineering field. So we're trying to strengthen some of that up on the DRC. I got to give everybody credit. I did it on Facebook the other day, but Philip Fong served us for years, and Jennifer, served us recently. We've been lucky to have some of these people throughout the duration since it's been created. So I appreciate their service. I am reappointing Daniel Davidson also. He's our landscape guy on there. He's done a good job. So that fills that committee. BZA, we have 2 citizen reappoint. Well, only one reappointment is really Victor Goshi, who just came on this year. So we're going to let him continue to serve. Now, the Planning Commission member that serves on there is Russ Campbell right now. That's decided by the Planning Commission. So it's always kind of been by default. They pick the chair of the Planning Commission, but that's really up to the Planning Commission. I don't think it's clearly defined there. I think if they chose someone else, but the chair of the Planning Commission or their designee, am I correct? I think that's the way it is. Their designee from the Planning Commission fills that spot right now. That's Russ Campbell, but that could change at the Planning Commission on the BZA. Okay. And so I know you probably only had one meeting in the last year, two. Mr. Brooks, if you continue to serve there, if that's good for you, that's fine.
An alternate for your DRC. Did you reappoint that?
Oh, the DRC, I did forget. See, my notes are all scattered over here. So yeah, Jeremy, again, that's one of those things where it takes some time. Jeremy, if you'd be, I know we.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Getting nervous there for a second.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I did it. I'm just, like I said, I'm kind of bouncing around. Instead of going down, I bounced around to what I consider the 2 more important committees. And then when it comes to design review and planning, I mean, those kind of are the ones that we hear. Those are the ones that meet monthly. These other ones all meet kind of sporadically, or except for Cheryl, she's got hers locked down to where she's cracking the whip on them. So we got Jeremy as design review, Oscar on BZA. I somehow lost my complete second page. So parks, all right. Parks, I have a question. Since Mr. Harmon and Harry, I see Harry is on Parks Committee now. Currently. So I wanted to offer it up, trying to get everybody involved. Would Larry, would you like to serve on Parks, or Harry, or I mean,
I've had it for a year. Why don't you take it a year?
It's up to you. If you want to come off, I'll take it. If you'd like to stay. Nobody's wants me.
That's a good time.
I'm taking both of them.
Well, anybody can come sit on any meeting. I'm just trying to spread it out a little bit because.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Usually, I remember him saying that last year. He didn't care if he was. I mean, not like that. You're just like, if you need me, put me on one. If you don't,
If you
don't.
really want to be on the committee, I'm more than happy to step aside.
Would you be willing to take Parks?
Yeah.
Parks and Rec? Okay. So Mr. Harmon on Parks.
It'll be something different.
Okay.
Something else may come up. And I'll
Yeah.
do that.
Mr. Harmon on Parks. Reappoint Miss Pardue on Library and Health and Safety. I know Health and Safety's her. They're both kind of her.
She looks like a librarian right
They're
there.
budget keeps. So, but she's done a really. I mean, she's really got a good feel of where everything's going with that, and I appreciate her work on that. And like I said, I must have fallen out in the car. What was my last one?
So Parks, you had a reappointment for Kirk Wise.
Kirk Wise, we appointed him last month, and so we're just reappointing him this month.
Is he going to be over for the sports again?
He's supposed to be stepping down.
He's-
from baseball as the
I'm
He's
sorry.
working on, that's something that they're working on pulling back from. That's something that a conversation that Kirk and Daniel will have to have as they move forward. The meeting he had with Kathy and myself about 2 months ago was baseball's in a good spot to either turn it over to somebody else or the town. And we're not asking for the town to do it but that's something that Daniel will have to do. But that's supposedly where we are.
He made a difference.
Yes, he made a great difference.
So maybe.
First time in years.
He's not going to do it. Maybe he's got a recommendation.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him.
That's the first, I'll be honest, first time in several years I have not had complaints on baseball the last couple of years. It's been great.
No, I got positive feedback.
Yes.
The only other reappointment for Parks was DJ Dollar.
And DJ, yes, and reappoint DJ. There hasn't, believe it or not, some of the applications we get in, we don't get many. A lot of people ask and say they want to, and I think we're down to maybe one or two apps that aren't filled, and that's just because of where they wanted to go. They're not qualified or whatever. So we'll try to work them in somewhere else. But, they don't want this one, but they want this one. But it's kind of the way it works. So that should take care of.
You just have finance.
Oh, finance. I think at least 2 years, and I remember saying that last year. I think 2 years is a good number. Would you be willing to serve again, Oscar, as finance?
I was actually kind of interested, not kicking myself in the hiney for not paying attention in the years past. Just some of the news with the finance. Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Thank you very much. And there's I want to make a note on this too, because this is where I was making notes, and I've been handling a lot more today than I was planning on handling. So that's where I must have left that piece of paper somewhere else. There's really no bylaws by the finance committee. We're going to start calling it the Finance Advisory Board to make sure it's I think some thought it was a voting committee, and we just want to make sure that that's it's an advisory board. And at the request, it's I don't know how you want to call this. I can make a joke and make it sound bad. Mr. Henders has served there longer than Kathy's been on staff here, all right? And Mr. Henders has hinted that he is winding down his time on the committee, and we have to start looking at IDB replacements too. We're going to have to find some strong IDB people. So if you all have recommendations, we're going to have to start replacing those, because a lot of them have been here for a while, and whether it's family, health, whatever, they're needing to find some replacements so they can step down. But so on this one, kind of as an honorary addition to this committee, Mr. Hinkle, who is Gene's son-in-law, has been asking to be led by his father-in-law and kind of be shown the way. And I told him he can come, but if it makes it more official, just to appoint him for a little bit and let him kind of be a part of it, I would do that for Gene. So Don Hinkle's going to kind of come follow in his father-in-law's footsteps, at least for a little bit. So Gene's still going to be on there. Yes, Gene, and the rest of the committee stays the same. It's just adding Don.
Now, is Don staying on the planning?
Yes, Don's staying on the planning commission.
Now,
This
Don
is
came a long ways in the last couple of years.
Yes. Don's just wanting to learn. He's wanting to watch, and so instead of just coming as an advisor, I said, if you want to be a part of it, it's not hard to make you a part of it. I'll make you a part of it. So he's asked several times. Yeah. So, and since there's no bylaws on the number, I said, well, go ahead, because we have Miss Marlene, we have Gene, we have Ron Williams and Hunter, and several of those were new last year, and so we got to get some people that are going to have some longevity there too, because finance is kind of like IDB. It's one of those you got to have a clear understanding of. So, I think that covers everything. All right. Sorry about my lack of organization. This is my conversation with the commercial appeal earlier, if you guys can read that. So that's where I may have left. She may have taken my paper with me, so she's probably reading something. I just have a few things. I will say Miss Howe, Tanya Howe, who's usually here, who's a champion for our town in so many ways. Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris is having a presentation tonight, kind of unveiling his plan for all of his advisors, what they're recommending, what they're changing. Well, since we had a meeting tonight and we couldn't be there, she went on behalf of the town. So she's there representing us and keeping an eye, and will kind of give us some feedback as to what's going on. So it gives us a little comfort level there. But she also wanted me to mention the chamber luncheon next week, which Miss Mason is speaking on Wednesday the 14th. And the Chamber's Veterans Day program, which is this Sunday at 3 p.m. at Depot Square, and the AMS band will be performing there. So that's this Sunday. Let's see, we do have Christmas on the Square, November 17th, Christmas Parade, December 1st. Ms. Mason, not to put you on the spot, but you are heading out of town tomorrow for a big award. Would you like to mention that real fast?
Yes, many of you probably heard Donaldson Elementary won National Blue Ribbon School, and so some of us will be flying out tomorrow to Washington, D.C. to bring home that award back to Arlington.
It's great. It's great. Good. That's a very prestigious. So
Yes.
Thank you all. Congratulations.
Mike,
Yes.
can I say something on committees?
Yes.
Since the board appoints the planning commission member, or they recommend and go back, I think it would help, Gerald, if this is okay, can we do that in October instead of November, so it'll help the mayor know how to put his people? Seems like every year,
I had to kind of
he
juggle
has
as I
to
go.
juggle it during the meeting.
Well, it was just starting last year I did, because, once it's a
Well,
board appointed.
Believe it or not, it was, 2 years when it was brought up, but that's okay. What, is it okay we make
No, I
our,
don't think it lays out in the statute or the charter that position's filled by the board. It doesn't say at what time. I think we've typically done it in November because with September election, your first board meeting with some new board members could be October. So with recognization that may be the first meeting that a few board members may have. It's not saying you can't do it in October, but I think that's why we typically done it in November, because it's the second meeting after some. We don't generally have a large turnover on board, but you could at any given time have 3 new board members.
Well, again, till last year, I mean, it was always just kind of the assumption that the mayor was doing it. So now,
yeah,
I think, and I guess I agree, because again, it would help me kind of.
If you knew
Y'all
a
remember last
month
year I
in
held up scribble
advance, you
notes
know.
and I was changing as I went because I wasn't sure what was going on. So it would probably be
Brittany, can
easier.
we just make a note of that and let's bring it up next October instead of November, and then
Just
he's
for the
got a whole
board
month
appointed
to-
planning commission member only, then still the regular
Because I see your
appointees.
face sometimes when we're pointing and you're trying to juggle, and there's no need to doing that when we don't have to.
Yeah. I'm okay with, the board's okay with that.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. All right, one other thing, and before we get into everything else, one thing that I've mentioned, and it's not necessarily up for discussion tonight, but maybe give your thoughts to Brittany and/or Kathy. You know, sometimes, like last month, we had that long meeting, and then some nights we have multiple items on there that really aren't discussion. What I'm trying to get to is, could we possibly consider a consent agenda on some items moving forward? You don't have to just think about it, just some food for thought. Get with staff and let them know what you think. And some of the items that are, I don't want to say less controversial, but like tonight we have 8 different agreements with all the sports leagues or whatever. You put that under one instead of having to read every one and vote on every one. You can vote on, and if anybody has a question about one at the beginning of the meeting, you just say, I'd like to pull item G out. And then that's the way that's the way the consent agenda is. And then you're pulling, not everything would be on a consent agenda, but just the things that are pretty routine. And then the things that are more controversial or more in-depth discussion or presentation-wise are always out to the side. The consent agenda would just maybe shorten some of those things up. So,
But it's, what you were saying is that if there's one that someone's got a concern about, you can request that pulled from it, and then we can go in discussion about that
Yeah.
individually.
yeah,
Okay.
basically what it does is if there was a consent agenda, say we had 5 discussion items, 10 on this consent agenda, and 2 people wanted 2 items pulled out, then it'd give us 7 over here and 8 over here, and then we'd just still vote on the remainder of the consent agenda. I think it would,
Is that okay, Gerald?
Yeah, you can have it, the consent agenda or over rules is fine. Like I say, if any member has an objection, it just automatically comes off because it's no longer.
yeah.
So what we're saying is items A, B, C, D, and E could be done on a consent agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, can we make a motion to do that tonight?
I don't know if we could do that right now, but
That's what I'm asking Gerald.
Can I go home early?
Well, you're on the payroll, that's why if I want to get it done quick. Has anybody got a,
well, I
I'll
mean,
make that
we
motion,
can make
nobody's
it in
got
a
any
motion.
comment?
Does staff have any? They weren't really prepared. Do you have anything that you were going to say specific on each particular item?
No, those are straightforward presentations, so.
Let's go for it.
Okay, this is the board.
Motion
You said
to
A through D, correct?
He said A through
E.
A
E.
through E.
A through E.
Hold on.
Is everybody
If any one
familiar?
of them need to be out,
E's yours, Gerald, so E, I think that's just.
I've looked at all of them, and I
So
don't
are we
have.
making a motion to allow consent agendas, or are we making a motion to consent
Well, you can
agenda these
allow-
items?
He's wanting to do it tonight.
What Gerald is saying, we can allow consent agendas anytime without a motion.
So we don't need to make it official that we're going to allow
No,
that.
we don't, right?
We'd make a motion to include items A, B, C, D, and E all in the next motion, right?
And everything is,
Catching me well, my phone number.
I was just trying to put it out for food for thought. I didn't know.
We're going to end up talking about this longer than what it would.
Okay.
if we just vote.
I mean, does staff have something they need to specifically do?
I would say, I don't think I'd want to put D in there.
Okay. Why don't we just do
Just
this
go through
tonight?
each
Why don't we
one.
just go through our normal thing
Yeah.
tonight and then let
We
staff
could've
be
done been
prepared
through it.
if without objection from the board, or if nobody wants to do it, that's fine. I'm just trying to help.
I think we're with you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if you want to do it next month, that's how you want to direct
Yeah.
staff. Staff typically sends out a week in advance, and for preliminary agenda, and we could have a preliminary agenda that says these items should be on the consent agenda.
Unless.
Propose for it, and unless anybody emails back and says.
Good deal.
Okay.
We have that way staff has a little better
Yeah.
time for if you think something needs to come off, so we don't have to
Yeah.
make a presentation.
But it could even still come up as late as the night of, you could still pull it off, yeah, yeah.
That's the way the schools do their school board does that.
Yeah, I didn't do it on the old school board, I did it on the merged school board, and I will say, when you had
I
6-hour
think that's
meetings,
what
it was
they do.
nice.
So I'm assuming that we would still read each one of those.
You don't read them. You say these items, A, B, C, D, are in a consent agenda.
Be looking like your Senate.
Well, just, if you have questions, I haven't really talked with staff about it, I briefed it, but
You may just have to read your agenda a little earlier to say yes.
I've mentioned it to Kathy, and she said whatever the board wants to do, that's fine. I just, so it's just,
I'm
it's
good
just
with
something
it.
to think about, get with staff. If anybody has any objections, we'll continue on the same
Sure.
way. All right. All right. So we are under old business. Any old business, Mrs. Owens? Oh, I skipped committee reports. I got off there. See, I'm out of whack. Do any of the committees, library, planning, health and safety, and Arlington School Board, of course, all met this last month. Does anybody have anything they'd like on the committees up here? Okay, the treasurer's report, please.
All right. In our general fund, we had a beginning balance of $2,209,674.25, an ending balance of $1,829,075.99. In our sewer fund, we had a beginning balance of $2,038,465.72, and an ending balance of $2,010,770.96.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any questions on the treasurer's report? All right, any old business, Mrs. Owens? Seeing none, we're on the new business. Item A, first reading of ordinance 2018-12 to amend Title V of Municipal Finance and Taxation, Chapter 5 of the Arlington Municipal Code, Public Advertisement and Competitive Bidding. Mrs. Owens?
Okay, this is a first reading to amend your municipal code. The only change that staff is recommending that be really added to this chapter of the municipal code is that three written quotations are required for any purchases over $1,000. And so we are requesting that by the state law, we can go up to 40%. So we're requesting that we can raise that to $4,000, especially since a lot of the purchases that we're making are sole proprietors. So that's the only place you can get it. It would just prevent a lot of paperwork on staff's part if we can eliminate that and raise it to $4,000. So staff's recommending approval of this first reading of the ordinance.
You heard the recommendation by Ms. Owens. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks. Second by Mrs. Pardue. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That item passes. Item B, Resolution 2018-70 to authorize Mike Wisman in his capacity as mayor of the town of Arlington to approve the amendment and to the agreement between the town of Arlington and Fisher Arnold Design Service for the widening of TDOT project, of Airline Road, TDOT project 120178, yeah. Mr. Hill.
Yes, sir. Under the TDOT program for the road projects, there's an environmental document for all these projects. It's good for 3 years. Their right-of-way acquisition process is so cumbersome that we get to the end of that time frame before we, and don't get the right-of-way acquired in time for them to authorize the next step. This is an agreement to reevaluate the environmental document. I know Gerald's working hard on trying to get the right-of-way acquisition for Airline Road done, but the way TDOT moves and the way the federal highway moves, I don't think we'll get the money authorized by December 29th, which is when the document expires. So the sooner we start reevaluating, the sooner we can get it approved. It'll still be a matter of 3 or 4 or 5 months, but that's what this is for. I guess if Gerald tells me tomorrow he's got all the right-of-way acquired,
I will not.
he will not. We may not need this, but we suspect we will. So that's what this is about.
All right, you've heard the recommendation from Mr. Hill. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Mrs. Pardue, second by Mr. Brooks. Discussion or questions for Mr. Hill or Mr. Lawson?
I do not.
Yeah, there's one or two, there's a couple tough properties there, I guess. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Stay right there, Mr. Hill. Item C, Resolution 2018-71, to authorize Mike Wisman in his capacity as mayor to enter into an agreement with Smith Seckman Reed Incorporated as a professional consultant engineering firm to provide services related to construction of improvements on Airline Road from I-40 to Milton Wilson Boulevard in accordance with TDOT requirements. Mr. Hill.
In anticipation of ultimately getting to build the Airline Road project, we have to procure a consulting firm to provide construction engineering and inspection services. We advertised this. We had one submittal. There are not a lot of firms that are still in that business because TDOT has started doing all that in-house, so the opportunities are few and far between. But Smith Seckman Reed is the firm that's will be doing Highway 70 and Jetway project, and also will be doing Airline Road under this submittal. So this would authorize us to begin negotiation of a contract for those services. But it will still be some months out before we actually execute it.
You heard the recommendation by Mr. Hill. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Pardue. Second by Mr. Harmon. Discussion or questions? Just ties in with the other one. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. This is back to Mr. Hill again. Item D, Resolution 2018-72, to authorize Mike Wisman in his capacity as mayor to authorize the award of bid and enter into a contract with Tabor Grinder for project known as Forest Street Campus Phase 1. Mr. Hill.
We opened bids on October 12th for Phase 1 of the campus project, which involves predominantly grading of the site and building of the new parking lot, continuing the widening of Forest Street over toward Depot Square. We had a total of 9 bidders, very competitive bidding, as you can see from the numbers, extremely close. All of them well below my estimate, which is good to hear. We are recommending award to the low bidder, Tabor Grinder, in the amount of $1,833,196.84.
For the recommendation by Mr. Hill, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Biggs. Discussion or questions for staff?
I'd just say Tabor and Grinder is one of your better
Yeah.
contractors. You find them being the lowest is kind of odd at times.
They have, if you recall, they're doing the tennis complex
Yep.
as well,
Yep.
so they've taken an interest in Arlington.
Yeah,
Well,
they
I
do
don't know if they're the
some good
lowest, it's just everybody else has jacked theirs up so high that it's all about in the same ballpark now. I can say that. I'll say that. We've seen what the construction cost and estimates are, and so, yeah, so good quality work and good competitive bids, so.
The lights, is that the parking lot, the walking trail?
Predominantly is the parking lot. We're lighting part of the trail. We're not building all the trail to Depot Square yet. Some of that will be part of the Depot Square Street Improvements Project, but it's lighting over to the west property line of the campus property.
And does that include the existing parking lot, that little parking lot that's over there? Are we going to add lighting to that?
That one will be lit in the current project for the Phase 2 and 3 campus, park improvements. It's already under construction by Wagner
Okay.
Construction.
Okay.
Which part, wait a minute, which parking lot are you?
The one on the park or the little one?
One closest to Vinegar Jim's?
One closest to Vinegar Jim's.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking of the wrong parking lot.
I thought that's what he was saying.
We're not lighting that parking lot in this project.
Okay.
The next phase will include an amphitheater and the farmer's market that will be in that parking lot, and so the lighting of that lot will need to happen with that project.
Okay.
How long, I know construction gets drug out because of weather, but we say in this phase, so when will we be looking to move to the second phase? When this is totally complete or at a
No,
certain?
they will overlap. Fisher Arnold is working on the design of the buildings, the amphitheater and the farmer's market, and we expect probably just after the first of the year, January or February, to get those out for bids.
Okay.
But there will be concurrent projects going on that site.
Will the amphitheater and farmer's market be in the same phase?
Yes.
And so possible completion time from phase 1 and phase 2. I know.
I suspect you're looking at spring, early summer of 2020.
Yeah. Okay.
Will
All
the
right.
cost be broken out? I'm talking about the next phase. Will the cost be broken out so that we can see the cost of amphitheater only no farmer's market, farmer market only, no amphitheater? Are we going to have those in front of us?
We can structure the bids any way you want to do that. If there's the thought that you might do one and not the other, we would probably have a couple of bid items and just let the contractors know that you may get one or you may get both. You know, it just depends on the funding and how the bids come in. So if that's a desire of the board, we can certainly structure it that way.
Question on that, though, if you split them, is there a chance it'll be higher? Or since you could have two different groups?
Well, I think the way we would want to do it is have one bid package, one contractor, but have, just let them know, you have a bid for the farmer's market, you have a bid for the amphitheater.
Much like the tennis courts bid with the alternate bids in there?
You may end up with 3 bids in, all package, one of each.
It could be. There's different ways to structure it. We just
Because
need to.
it could come out a lot cheaper if you do both compared to doing one at a time.
That's true. And I know there's some additional parking and site work associated with each of those.
Each one of them.
And, if we're gonna do it, if there's a chance you're gonna build one of them and not the other, then the way we do the parking and drives might be a little different. So if we're really gonna do that, we gotta structure the plans to reflect it. So there may need to be some tweaking of what's in what phase, so there's no confusion. Very easy to get these things twisted when you bid projects and contractors say, I didn't understand what you meant by all that. I didn't get that, so.
Do you look for this one to come under bid also?
It's, I think I told you when we started this project, on civil stuff, I feel pretty comfortable about the numbers, and this came out great. I'm not saying we did good, but thank goodness we did. But buildings, it's a crapshoot, pardon my French, and I who knows? It just depends on how busy everybody is. If we get this many bidders on the buildings, they could be very competitive as well.
I think it's definitely a desirable project for people, so it's one of those kind of landmark type things, so hopefully we'll get some competitive bids. Any other questions or comments for staff or Mr. Hill? Do you have something, Ms. Owens? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Next up, item E. Resolution 2018-73 to authorize a second amendment to the purchase and sale agreement for town property 2.17 acres, amended to adjust the total purchased acreage by 0.3 acres to a total of 2.14 acres of vacant land on the west side of Airline Road, south of Memphis, Arlington, adjacent to Arlington Automotive. Mr. Lawson.
This is the second amendment to this contract. They come back through. Again, it's not adjusting the price. It's just they adjusted the lot line after meeting with staff and going through determining exactly what they need. Ms. Reed or Mr. Hill may be able to better explain exactly why they changed it. I think it requires a little less detention because everything over there, is that correct?
It is. Originally, they had left themselves a large area for detention basin and development, only because of the way the site is currently, mostly being impervious, they might not need as much, or that might not be the exact location they could potentially use the perimeter of the site and landscaping instead. So this would just give them more of a rectangular shaped parcel instead of having that sort of wart on the bottom. It's kind of look like before with the detention is going to be. So it cleans up the property lines. So.
You've heard the recommendation by staff. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Biggs, second by Mrs. Pardue. Discussion or questions? I have a question. It's not necessarily this one, but this was within the 90-day, whatever, due diligence. We had 90 days. So are we, on the other two parcels, are they next month within the 90 days? Is that, they were all close together. I'm trying to think of when.
No, this one was earlier. We did this one in August. We started the due diligence. January.
January, okay.
They get a little bit longer.
Okay.
This doesn't change that date, though, does it?
No. This makes no modification to the contract other than just the legal description and what they're actually purchasing. It's the only change.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions, comments for staff? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Item F, Resolution 2018-74, to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Arlington Community School Board Education for a facility use agreement for the tennis complex. Mr. Lawson.
As you recall, we had the bids opening for the tennis complex over off Milton Wilson and Memphis Arlington. The contract's been awarded. This is for contribution of $400,000 from the Arlington School Board to the town for helping us pay for that project. It's a interlocal agreement similar to what we've done, like on the bus barn or some other things, except that they're contributing money. The agreement states that it's a 20-year term agreement, that they'll have exclusive use during practices and matches of the, I was going to say fields, but I guess it's the
Courts.
During that time, time is not specified in the agreement because change, it's over 20 years when their season is. Essentially, we did ask that question, and I got back from Ms. Speakman that their TSSAA season is from February to May, and that the practices are Monday through Friday, 2:30 to 4:30. Matches are usually 2:30 to 6, and they'll host 1 to 2 tournaments depending on how those come along, and those are Thursday through Sunday. The courts would be open like any other park facilities to town citizens at any time that there's not a practice or a match during that season from February to May. With the either the middle school or high school tennis teams would be utilizing them.
I mean, you mean just going to get a motion on the floor? And
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you
I didn't know if you were still talking.
questions, yeah,
Okay.
that's, it's a short basic agreement. I mean, that's basically what it is.
Okay.
If you have any questions, we can address that.
You've heard the recommendation from Mr. Lawson. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
By Mr. McKee. We do have Ms. Mason here, and I think she wanted to, did you want to say something, or, and then we'll have any discussion or questions? Oh,
I have a coach's voice. My voice is about
well, you need to
gone.
save your voice for DC tomorrow, so.
I've lost it after TSBA this weekend. First, I do want to say that 2:30 to 4:30 as high school, middle school is in there too. That would go beyond that for practices. Because I think that what that was given was just for the high school team. I've written down a couple notes. I usually don't read, but I wanted to make sure that I wanted to let the board know what was important to us in this agreement. There's really 3 substantive pieces that are important to us in the proposal. One is that the town agrees that no one other than ACS students and its opponents are able to use the courts during our matches and/or practices. During the 4 months of the tennis season, we're not asking for that time to be beyond practices and matches. It's only during those times. And if that condition is not able to be met, then ACS would get its money back. And then the next one, this is to help the tennis team to support itself. Julie and I were talking. Traditionally, there's not concession stands at the tennis matches, but if we were to host a district or regionals, there may be, and that's a way for a source of revenue for our tennis teams, that they would be able to keep that money, the concession stand money. I would also say that the ACS is going to contribute $400,000 and not own anything. We're not going to have any property rights. So we have to have something that if ACS is not going to own the courts or the property, then that we wouldn't have any legal entitlements to the use of the property or have people removed from the courts during matches or practices, that our coaches would have something that they could rely upon then with a written agreement, keeping in mind that the funding that we get is supposed to go toward our students. And if we don't have an agreement that cements that for our kids, then that funding is really not being used properly. So, but those are our 3 big pieces that we ask you for and would like for you to consider as you discuss the agreement. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for being, I didn't know you were even going to be here tonight till just right before the meeting. I thought you were in Nashville.
I was for 4 days, made it back a day and leaving again tomorrow.
So, and I know I've over time, not all the board members are always privy to all the conversations. They don't know. I mean, I don't always know what all the schools have going on. I think I joked about it a couple months ago when we approved this, that Mayor McDonald said, y'all need to build some tennis courts, because we've been using them for a decade. And, as we get into this agreement, that's what I was trying to say. We've never really, we're getting into this agreement, and yeah, there's some technicalities, and I don't want to use Ed Haley's old two attorneys type thing, Gerald, that he used to say, but I you know what I'm saying. I'll just leave it at that. So, but anyway, yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, I know sometimes, the agreement, everybody can start having some questions and all that, and that's fine, but it does get a little convoluted. But in the long term, short term, and it seems like the old days of just being able to do a handshake and do that would be the easiest thing. But I know as legalities and coverage and auditors or whatever, everybody has their hands in it, so it gets a little more convoluted. But in the end, I mean, I think this board, and I know your board, wants to just do what's best for students.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that, it's no different than Daniel. Daniel will have to be the one kind of scheduling with y'all, and working around those time frames of matches and all that. And I know we have Miss Moultrie who's, got some excitement about some youth leagues and stuff like that. So I think there's some opportunities there, but we also, as it's not going to be, when you were talking about, having teeth or whatever, if people are on the court, we do the same thing. If there's 15 kids playing on the football field for AYS, AYS gets out there and they've got an agreement with the town, they get to say, get off. Now, I guess somebody could really be stubborn and say they're not, but for the most part, everybody's usually been cordial, but it does I understand that. So just wanted to kind of say, I just kind of wanted to say thank you for being here, and thank you. I think we're at a point now that we just hopefully move forward, and everybody's holding hands moving forward. So discussion or questions? For Ms. Mason, for Mr. Lawson, for staff, even Daniel over here. I know there's some questions.
I had 4 questions that I had asked Gerald about, and each one of the 4, you want to read them, or? And he got an answer, got a good answer for each one of them that I had. I don't have that 4th one on here.
Yeah, Mr. McKee had asked me, that the facility use agreement that we're discussing just basically says that they give an exclusive use for practices and matches. Just for clarification, Mr. McKee asked, when were the practices? It was Monday through Friday, 2:30 to 4:30. Apparently that is just for high school, so middle school right after that.
Usually, because middle school doesn't get out of school.
Yeah.
Travel down there and all that.
The earliest would be 2 o'clock.
For high school.
I mean, for anyone.
Yeah.
The early, yeah.
You're looking at 2 to 7.
The only reason I
during-
asked that because,
School dismisses at 2, and then travel time to get there.
the only reason I asked that, if somebody, and I talked to Julie about it, what if somebody at 8 o'clock in the morning come in and using it, didn't say anything. I just didn't know what it meant, exclusive without.
If they're licensed
That's why I asked that
for high
time.
school, then 2 hours for middle school should be sufficient as well, right?
Yeah, I would
So
assume.
you're talking a 4-hour period.
Games and tournaments were the other one, and that's Monday through Fridays. Matches generally 2:30 to 6 p.m. The district would host 1 to 2 tournaments per season, and that those tournaments would go probably Wednesday through Sunday.
Well,
I think
go ahead.
I've been told that the word exclusive is causing a problem. If you keep in mind that exclusive is defined in the agreement. It's not exclusive anytime during those 4 months. It's exclusive during practices and matches. And
I'm actually fine with it. It's basically just like our field agreement.
Yeah.
That's right.
Long as we knew that, like in the morning times, I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
No, it's similar to, again, like our baseball agreement. Remember, we had the discussion where the guy said we wants to use the fields on Sundays, even though, Arlington Youth Baseball was using it, and we said, you're right.
Well, if somebody called and said, we would like to use it at 10 o'clock in the morning, at least we know that there's not going to be someone down there and say, yeah, you could, you know.
Yeah, that's where staff, that's where Daniel's department, comes in and
The only
handles all
time
that.
that I can think of that kids would be down there in that is if you're hosting the district tournament, regional tournament, because sometimes those are an all-day event. And so, but, and, I mean, we can work this
Yeah.
out with that gentleman.
Yeah.
And with and the coaches from the schools. This is going to be
No.
that's right.
There doesn't need to be everything in
Absolutely.
there, in my opinion.
On that, and so,
Yep.
I think that both, my attorney and your attorney, Gerald, they've worked, this is probably, Gerald, probably the fourth iteration, to try and pare it down, and I think that we're close to that.
Yeah, so, you got a lot of discussion, we, second or third.
I mean, maybe not formally, but back.
Yeah,
and
back and forth, yeah.
Through discussions, and, obviously, we're partners, the town and the school system are partners, we want the same thing, these kids are citizens too, so with that, I would ask you to approve the agreement.
Mr. McKee, did you want, Mr. McKee, did you have other questions that you were saying?
Yeah, the other question I had, and I think, just so we would know, all 6 courts will be used at the whole,
That was the third question, all 6 courts, and that's my understanding is when they're used at all 6 courts
Well,
for practices.
we need to be careful to have other people down there anyway while they were practicing, because that could cause.
I think that's part of the reason the exclusive
And I
was.
think the,
Exclusive, yeah. The fourth question was whether. a practice-
Supervision.
Supervision, and my understanding is there'll either be a sponsor or a coach there for any practice or match.
the only reason I asked that is I just didn't want somebody showing up and they get into a,
Yeah. I mean, that's not to say that, school's out, the kids may not get there for coach, because coach is after school duty, but, I mean, it'll be for them.
well,
Yeah,
we got the emails at 2:00 on, so if you'll just make sure that's part of,
Anticipate that there'll be a problem with that, but we do, we all know that sometimes there's people that,
There's outliers that will
they're
occur.
outliers, and so if that would be there, I just want to make sure that my coaches and my kids have something that they can, that will help them.
Yep.
the reason I was asking, because I was talking with Julie, because she's wanting to look at some special, needs play, and I wanted to make sure that if they wanted to do it 10:00 in the morning, they could. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, come on up, Ms. Moultrie, if there's something you need to address, since you've been a part of this.
So I've been in contact with Brittany, and we'll have our own facilities agreement, and we're working out the details of that. So
Oh.
some of the programs that I'm hoping to offer, Special Olympics, we're hoping to bring here with Shepherd's Haven and adult leagues during the daytime and Saturday stuff. All of that will have second priority scheduling after the school schedule comes out. And as a coach, I need, even during the rainy season, if one of the
Make
school
up.
matches gets rained out, I need to be able to bump my own other programs so that we can get the rescheduled match in. So I think that the schools need first priority scheduling on all their practices and matches. And we will work all the other programs and walk-ons around that. But we can use those courts any other time after talking to Ms. Mason. I feel great about this agreement with the schools, and we can use all the other court times available for the other programs we like to see.
Thank you, Ms. Moultrie.
I don't have a problem as long as, the Parks and Rec and the schools and y'all, schedule together so everybody will be on the same page.
I think I hope nobody takes offense to that. I think we may be overthinking it too much, because that's what we do already. We do it with our sports leagues. We do it, and we do it in return. We've had to throw our sports leagues on the soccer complex at the high school because of the Douglas Field this year, and very accommodating to get that in return. We use the basketball at the high school, and they use fields, so it all works out if we just trust our staff to do it, So, and I think that's, I'm not trying to belittle anybody for saying, I'm just saying I know we can have a bunch of questions, but I think if we just trust the people that do it every day to do it, I think it'll work out, in my opinion.
It's exciting that I remember at one point people were worried about nobody will be out there, right? And so now we're having a whole different conversation of making sure that we have people out there at the right time so that the walk-ons can come and stuff. So to me, that's
It's a good
kind of
thing.
exciting that we're having those kind of discussions. I mean, February through May, when people drive by, there's going to be kids out there playing, and it may inspire some other people to go out there and play and stuff, so that's exciting to me. The other thing I would say is, at the end of the day, this is like legalese, I guess, and this is, what attorneys put together, but I know Miss Mason, I know Miss Williams. If there's ever an issue, I have confidence that we as a staff can call and talk and work through it, and I don't ever foresee a situation where the school board is going to sue the town. I just don't ever, I don't ever foresee that, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
I hope not.
I'll go back
Mr.
to what I
Brooks?
said last month. The big thing that got this pushed 5 years ahead of what I was actually thinking it should have been done was the needs of the schools. So to squabble over a couple hours here, a couple hours there, it's no big deal. Let them work it out with staff. Exclusive to me is nothing different than what we're saying when we do our league agreements with the football and the baseball and what have you, so I'm fine with that. I would like to see you make sure you do some concession stands over there, don't just let it waste away, do something with the building, enjoy it, make some money for the kids, put some money back into the programs.
And I don't know what the final copy reads, but I would just highly suggest that we do instead of just say practices and matches. Because tennis matches aren't on a clock like some other sports, and so you may have a match that lasts longer than expected, and you may not be able to put a time on the end of it. So I would just leave it general to practices and matches.
You'll probably know more about it after we get going for a little while.
Yeah.
I think it'll work.
I think hers are pretty well set by TWSAA, so hers are kind of tight.
I mean, the after-school times, like not saying until
Yeah.
6 o'clock, just saying until it's over.
Practices are pretty easy to determine. Sometimes matches aren't, is what you're saying. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. This side, anybody over here? I've only heard from this side, so I didn't know.
I just had one question, and I'm assuming on the signage, it's kind of, again, for raising money like we see on the other fields, where when the season ends, I'm assuming that the plan would be that the coaches would then take them down, roll them up, and reuse the ones they can for the next year, so they don't get tattered and torn in the off-season, not being used, and then also, like, if we have summer leagues and stuff like that then they could sell sponsorships and same thing.
Yeah, we can do that, We'll just let the local businesses know that that's only for a certain amount of time.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's what we do at soccer, because they bring mine to me.
Now, those on the fields, they stay up year round, and obviously that's average.
Soccer?
At the football, well.
You're talking about the high school.
Annually. I mean, they redo them every year.
Yeah, they put them up
Yeah,
during the season.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's not an issue. I didn't know if Rec with me, I don't know if they have anything. But obviously, those will be our Arlington businesses, and we're always looking at trying to promote them.
And I hope we have lots of them putting sponsorships down there to support the program, and so,
Me too.
Is that all you have?
that was it.
Mr. Harmon, Ms. Pardue?
With the codes on.
No? We good?
All
Anybody
mine's
have
in.
questions? Okay, so just for clarity, so we vote on this tonight. Does your board have to vote on it too? Or you
They don't have to vote on it, I just want to consult with them.
Okay.
They're familiar with the agreement as is.
Okay.
If there's any changes made to it, then I'll need to go back to them.
Okay. So does that address everybody's questions or concerns tonight?
I'm fine.
Okay, so when we vote on this, it'll be approved pending both signatures of the schools and the town. Do I sign this, or is this yeah, my signature and Ms. Mason's signature, I guess. Okay. All right, so if there's no other discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That item passes. Any other new business, Mrs. Owens?
No, sir.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the bills for payment? I hear a motion by Ms. Pardue, a second by Mr. Brooks. Any objection to paying the bills? Seeing none, that item passes. Any other announcements before we adjourn besides there's storms coming in? All right, let's have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Adjourned.
Motion and a second. Meeting's adjourned. Everybody be careful going home. Be careful tonight.
Real easy part.
You missed your time.
No, not on that.